Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. Welcome to our little mini masterclass that we are doing every Friday here at 9 a.m. I'm Dr. Karen Parker. Give me just a minute to get all of our proper buttons and invitations pushed, and we'll get started today. We're talking about the sacredness of rest, which is a really important topic, right? All right. Okay. All right. Good morning. Good morning. The sacredness of rest. I am sharing with you that I probably should not be teaching this topic. This is as a role model, this is a topic that maybe I'm not so good at. My dad always used to say, still says, those who can't do, teach. Right? So today I'm the embodiment of those who can't do, teach. I'm going to teach you about rest. I'm still working on deconditioning some of my ideas around work and rest. All right, so let's give it a sort of a big, broad overview. Let's get started with the big picture, if you will, and then let's sink down into exploring the topic of rest as being a sacred act. I want to start first by saying we've been talking about for the past couple of weeks cycles and seasons of transformation. We've been talking about how whenever we're going to make big changes in our life, or whenever we're really wildly out of sync with what we need, or a new growth cycle or a new identity that we're stepping into, whenever we're up leveling, our lives have a tendency to get disrupted, right? Things fall apart. Not because you screwed up, not because you've done anything wrong, but because your old story, who you used to be, doesn't fit anymore, right? So you're trying to be someone that you're not anymore, and your life, as a reflection of your inner story, starts to fall apart. And that falling apart can be a health crisis, it can be a political crisis, it can be a work crisis, it can be disruptions in your job, it can be a relationship crisis. You know, we tend to blow things up unconsciously. Our higher self says, okay, you're done with that. You learned whatever you needed to learn, or you're ready to let that go. Let's make room for something new. So we go first through a season of disruption. Then we get into a cycle of liminality. It's sort of this place where we are not who we used to be, but we're not quite yet who we're growing into. We're in the in-between time. I call that the void, right? And then eventually, beyond the void, we step into expansion. These three phases are incredibly powerful and incredibly intentional. If you are wanting to learn more, either you're in a cycle of disruption or you're in the void, and by the way, we're all in a cycle of disruption right now. That's kind of the nature of what's going on a collective level. We are dismantling things that don't work because our old identity isn't fitting anymore. And if it feels really like, uneasy and stressful, it is. And part of what's happening is we've got to take apart what's not working and step into the void so that we can intentionally start to create where we're going. It is, a very tense and disruptive time. And I feel like it's going to be continue to be a time that impacts all of us in many different ways. And so everything that we've been talking about, we're all going through. Even if you're not going through it on a personal level, we're definitely going through it on a collective level. I created a free workbook for you all to support you during this time, or to support you in a season or a cycle of transformation. So Teresa's going to post the link to the workbook below. I encourage you to grab it, look at it, read at least the first 9 pages, explore some of the exercises in there. Starting on Monday, April the 28th, I'm going to be doing a 5-day masterclass series on transformation, seasons and cycles of transformation, how to coach yourself, or if you're in a practice of any kind, coach your clients through seasons of disruption. What do you do when it feels like everything is unknown, right? What do you do when you don't know where to go next, right? Or what to do next, which is the focus of what we're going to talk about today. If you have not already registered for the 5-day masterclass series, Teresa's going to post the link below, and you can register. When you register, you'll get access to our workbook. We're going to meet every day at 11 a.m. Central. You'll get access to the Zoom links. Be there, especially right now at this time, because this time, even though it's disruptive, and this is true whether you're going through disruption on a personal level or, again, just looking at the world right now, disruptive cycles are also cycles of massive opportunity. It is your time to take back control, excuse me, of the reins of your life, to grow your inner strength and your inner connection to yourself so that you are so powerful that no one can take control over you. We need to be standing in that quality of strength in this time. And I want you to be there. I want you to not let the fear of the unknown or the fear of the disruption to knock you off your path. This is a powerful time of opportunity, and you deserve to capitalize on it. Because when you capitalize on it, you're going to do amazing things with it. You wouldn't be here if you weren't. Because you're here, I'm guessing, you're here to be part of the process of calling in the elegant solutions to the challenges facing humanity today. You're here to be a midwife to something better. But we can't do our work, we can't do our sacred calling if we don't know how to use these cycles and seasons to our advantage, and ultimately to the advantage of the greater good. So please be there. Please join us, because you're going to learn some really important information that's going to help you capitalize on this season so that you can stay in touch, in control of yourself, so you can be sovereign over yourself so that no one else can be sovereign over you. All right. That's the end of that's the end of the links that I have for you today. All right. So our topic today is the sacredness of rest. And I'm going to come back and address this. This has come up a couple times over the last couple weeks because it is so important. It is so important, because one of the biggest things that happens, or one of the biggest causes or symptoms of disruption in our lives, is burnout. We oftentimes burn out, and it causes our life to implode or explode, depending on how you do it. Now, when I do human design readings, and when I first started teaching human design, and this is still true today, the single biggest reason why people come to me to learn about human design is because they're burned out. Because they're burned out. And it's so powerful, because it's so important, because if we don't heal that burnout, we don't get the fuel for the momentum to move forward into expansion. I'm going to say that again because it's so important. If we don't heal the burnout, it becomes impossible to tap into the energy necessary to move into expansion. We get stuck. It's part of why we get stuck is because when we go through cycles of disruption, we tend to ask the wrong question first. We always ask the question, well, what do I need to do? What do I need to do? Right? We're so trained to do, that we instantly go to, okay, I got to find that momentum. But we don't realize that you can't find that momentum if you don't have the energy, right? And so really the question we need to be asking ourselves when things fall apart is, do I have the energy for the next right step? Do I have the energy for the next right step? Here's some things to look for that are going to let you know whether you have the energy or not. If you haven't, this is true of all types, but certainly this can be more true if you are a manifestor or an initiator in quantum human design, a projector, or oh my God, I have been sick all week, so my brain is still a little fuzzy. So an orchestrator in quantum human design, projectors or orchestrators in quantum human design, and a reflector or a calibrator in quantum human design. If you have an open sacral center, then burnout for you might look like what we typically define as burnout, right? It can be that exhaustion, that depletion, the not being able to get up off the couch, not being able to get yourself moving forward physically, literally. Sometimes it also looks like anxiety. And that anxiety is oftentimes the anxiety of, am I going to have the energy for this? Am I going to burn out in the middle of doing the next new thing? And sometimes when you have an open sacral, that anxiety stops us dead in our path, right? I have a 15-year-old projector living with me, my daughter, and it's interesting to watch because I can almost predict when she's about to hit a depletion cycle. And it's interesting because she takes Saturdays off, literally, like religiously. She takes Saturdays off. That is her pajama day. She stays in her room. She watches videos all day. She's chill. She does art, but not a lot. And she absolutely has to have it. If she doesn't have it, if she doesn't get her rest day, she gets very anxious. She's already kind of starts to get anxious Thursdays and Fridays by the end of the week. And a lot of that anxiety is the fear of losing her energy because she's lost it before. Even though she's 15, she's already had seasons of depletion. And so really helping her recognize that anxiety is a symptom of exhaustion is important. So that's what happens to the open sacral types when they burn out. So your life falls apart. Oftentimes it falls apart because the body stops working. You get exhausted, you get depleted, you hit the couch, you can't move. That's your body's way of saying time out. You're depleted. You do not have the energy for the next right step. And before you can do anything else to recraft, re-engineer your reality, you have to cultivate the energy first. Manifesting generators, and by the way, these are general guidelines. These are not hard and fast truths. So if you relate to the open sacrals, or if you have an open sacral and you relate to what I'm going to say about generators, you get to decide what's true for you. That's part of staying in control of yourself and making yourself ungovernable, if you will, okay? By anything else other than yourself. Manifesting generators and generators tend to burn out in mediocrity, meaning they will experience what I'll call a meh kind of life, right? So if you're a manifesting generator or generator, you're designed to be powered by vitality. You're designed to be excited about your life. You're designed to go out and enthusiastically be doing what you came here to do. And oftentimes because creating that takes time, because creating that takes cultivating the inner identity for that, because part of the generator process is those plateaus that we sit on, right? Sometimes the frustration causes the generator types to settle and they burn out and they compromise and tolerate mediocrity rather than creating excitement and excellence and expansion. And so burnout for the generator types can oftentimes look like going through the motions, but not actually being fully alive and vibrant. And oftentimes what has to happen for a generator type to survive in that kind of state is they have to numb out, right? The frustration is so much that they have to just numb out. They'll eat, overeat, or emotionally eat, or watch TV, or drink, or do something that causes you to not have to pay attention to that frustration, that constant gnawing sense of, I'm here for more. I'm here to be doing something more than this, okay? So we have these two different ways that burnout can show up. And of course, our first tendency is to go, what can I do about this, right? What can I do about this? And then we start to spin out into that whole energy piece where we're trying to do, but we can't do because we don't have the energy. And then we're stuck, tripping over our own feet, trying to figure it out. So again, the most important question is not what can I do in this state, but do I have the energy for what's next? And the number one job then in that season becomes restoring, restocking, replenishing your energy. Now, I'm going to talk about this topic this week and next week because it's a lot, and I'm going to break it down into two different categories, or I'm going to talk about two different centers today and two different centers next week. Before I start talking about the centers, I want to talk about definition in the chart, openness and definition. So if you look at your chart, if you have your chart in front of you, and you look at your chart, you'll see that your centers are either colored in, that's called defined, or they're white, that's called openness, or undefined, okay? So you got either gonna have them colored in or white. A lot of times when we misuse the chart, people get really bogged down in, well, I have a this center and it's white, or I have a this center and it's colored in. What does that mean? And we want to try to label ourselves or label our energy. I want to introduce you to a different way of looking at that chart, and I want to introduce you to the word optimization. Your goal with your chart is not to figure out, am I open, am I defined, and to use it as a label. Your goal is to optimize how your centers function. Ultimately, we all have all the chart, and I hear people tell me all the time, well, I don't have a will center. You totally have a will center, even if it's completely white. It's just that you have it in an open state, which means you have a different lesson in that center than you do if it's colored in. The goal of your open centers, anything that's white in your chart, is to learn to self-regulate that energy. So go look at your chart really quickly. Any center that's open is where you're going to be experiencing all the energy around you, and your job, your goal is to find out how to stand in your own truth, your own energy, and not let the energy around you take you off that center, take you off that connection to your own self. So the goal of optimizing all of your open centers is to learn to self-regulate, to be able to stand in the sea of other people's energies and not let it knock you off your path. The goal of definition, anything that's colored in, is to accept that energy about yourself, to accept that part of yourself. So the colored in centers, excuse me, the colored in centers, if you're going to optimize all your defined centers, these are going to be aspects of yourself that you're going to learn to accept, and then to a certain degree also regulate, because that's energy you're putting out into the world. And you want to make sure that what you're offering the world is of high quality, right? It's beneficial to the people around you. It's high frequency, right? So openness is about self-regulation. Definition is about self-acceptance. And optimizing your chart is knowing what the goal is for each of those centers. So good. All right, cool. That's the first thing I want to talk to you about. Now, the second thing that we're going to talk about, and as I said, I'm going to talk about two centers today. I'm going to talk about the will center and the sacral center today. Next week, I'm going to talk about the emotional solar plexus and the root center. So when we talk about calibrating your energy, asking yourself the question, do I have the energy for what's next, right? And we talk about that goal. Cultivating, building the energy so that you're ready for what's next. By the way, if you're not ready for what's next, it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. And we feel stuck. But that stuckness is a blessing. So I want you to start to think of, if you don't have the energy for what's next, you're being given a loving cosmic pause by the universe. The universe is telling you, hey, honey, you seem tired. You seem like maybe you need some rest and a break. So we're going to give you some time off for you to get your energy optimized and restored, okay? So we're going to talk about, for today and next week, calibrating your energy. Now, in the human design chart, there are 4 motors, 4 centers that actually have energy for doing, or potentially for doing. Those 4 motors are the will center, the sacral center, the emotional solar plexus, and the root center. Now, again, don't get too hung up on, oh, I don't have that, or it's not colored in on my chart. You have all the chart. Openness is about self-regulation. Definition is about self-acceptance. So we all have all 4 motors. We just use them differently depending on how they're configured. When we talk about rest, we see that literally rest is encoded into the theme of 2 centers, which we're going to talk about today. The sacral center and the will center, all right? So the will center is the center for resources. It's also where our self-worth lives. And there's a really powerful relationship between self-worth and resources, or self-worth and energy, right? So let's start first and talk about self-worth. We are all inherently valuable. You are inherently valuable because you exist. There's literally nothing you have to do. There's nothing you have to prove. There's no number you need to achieve in order to be valuable. The minute you were conceived, or let's say the minute you were born, you are inherently valuable because you exist, okay? You are inherently valuable because you exist. You were born precious. When we operate from that preciousness, then we naturally take care of our resources. And part of our resources is our health and wellness, our financial, physical resources. We make good relationship agreements. We stand in our value. We set good boundaries. We invite and ask for things that reflect our value in our lives. We also value ourselves enough to rest because we live in an inner state of enoughness. We know that we are enough. And when we know that we are enough, we naturally call in a reflection of that enoughness. The story of our own enoughness creates enoughness in our life. And when we know that we are enough and consequently have enough, we feel good. And we feel good about resting, right? We feel good about restoring, restocking, replenishing our energy, restoring, restocking, replenishing our resources. Think about that for a minute. If we are not resourced, meaning if you are not in that enoughness place, we tend to make desperate decisions. We tend to override our need for rest because we think either we don't deserve it or we're so caught up in the idea that we have to physically, with our will, create whatever it is we need to create because we're in a state of not enoughness, that we don't do the things that we need to do to actually replenish ourselves, our resources, so that we actually are capable of creating more with greater synchronicity and with less willpower. So oftentimes, before we can cultivate the energy to move forward, the will to move forward, we have to first heal our self-worth. We have to first bring ourselves back into integrity with the idea that we are precious simply by virtue of our existence. You are precious simply because you exist. I'm going to say that again and again and again because I think this is the biggest thing that the whole world needs to heal right now. You are precious because you exist. And when you live from that preciousness, you give yourself permission to rest. You give yourself permission to take care of your resources. You give yourself permission to nurture yourself, to heal yourself, to set good boundaries, to take the time and the energy that you need to get yourself back online energetically. If we look at the will center and don't get too caught up in these gates, this is not about do I have this, do I not have this? This is just looking at the gates because the gates give us a code for what we need to do to heal our self-worth. The gates of the will center tell us, number one, one of the paths to healing your self-worth is remembering your higher purpose. Remembering that you were born for a purpose that only you in this entire cosmos can fulfill. That also makes you precious, by the way, right? That's how rare and precious you are. You are a once-in-a-lifetime cosmic event. So when we stand in that preciousness and we connect to the understanding and the remembering of, oh, I was born to fulfill a purpose that no one else in this entire cosmos can fulfill, you're doing a good job remembering your value. The second thing that we have to do to heal our self-worth is to curate and regulate. This is the gate 21, self-regulate our inner and outer environment to match the value of who we are. So you've got to take control over your inner narrative. No more blah, 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 no more saying bad stuff about yourself on the internal plane. So curating your inner and outer environment so that it is a reflection of your value. You don't let people say bad stuff about you anymore. You don't let people violate your boundaries and your preciousness and the sacredness of who you are. The third gate, the gate 40, says you actually need to retreat. You need to rest, renew, restore, restock, replenish, and then also play. play in community, play with each other in a healthy way. We need to dance, we need to sing, we need to play our tambourines and restock, replenish, recharge our social battery. And sometimes that means retreating before we can go back out. That means making sure we have the interpersonal energy to be able to play in the world, right? And last but not least, the Gate 26 says we have to heal. We have to be healed. We have to heal all of our past patterns that are keeping us playing small, keeping us from living in integrity with that true story of your inherent value that you were born to fulfill, that only you were born to fulfill, only you. When we do these things, then we recalibrate the will center. But built into that is rest. Built into that is play. Built into that is renewal. Built into that is connecting to source with higher purpose. Built into that is taking care of yourself and your body in every way possible, because you deserve it, because you're precious. Because when you are creating from a place of enoughness, you're not going to make desperate decisions that are going to put you in a position to have to demolish and blow up your life again in 6 months, right? That's how we recalibrate the will. The sacral center, it'll be a little bit shorter than the will center. The sacral center is the center for workforce and life force energy. And even though we don't often think of it as having a need for rest, it's actually a center that if you are a generator type, so if you're a generator or a manifesting generator, or an alchemist or a time bender, you are designed to burn that motor out every day. You are designed to work it so hard that when your head hits the pillow at night, it's like there's a button on the back of your head, and when that button hits the pillow, you're gone. You're asleep. You're asleep for however long you need to sleep, which, by the way, is usually not enough because our culture teaches us that sleep is something we do when we're dead. By the way, just fun fact, did you know that all sleep research studies have been done on men? And that now we are discovering that women actually need more sleep than men, which is ironic because I think they probably get less. 1, because sometimes the men snore, and 2, because we have kids, right? And 3, because of menopause. So ladies, please take the sleep that you need. Your whole life will change if you get 10 hours of sleep, 8 to 10 hours. That was a weird side rabbit hole, but something I feel passionate about at this phase of my life. All right. So your defined sacral needs to be wearing itself out every day. If you're not wearing that sacral out, meaning if you're living at mediocre, that's that burnout for the generator types. If you're living at mediocre and you're not tapping into that life force vitality that is yours, and you're not burning your energy out every day because you're numbing out, because you can't handle the frustration, you can't handle the despair of feeling like you're doing less than, you're not fulfilling your purpose. When you're not moving that body enough and burning that energy off, you're not sleeping well, and you're not getting enough rest, and you're not getting the renewal that you need. And probably you need to up your action game so that you can wear that energy out every day to feel more active, to feel better rested, to sleep better, so that you can get that energy back online. Obviously, the other thing you have to do is you have to learn how to respond with your sacral. That learning to respond with your sacral is like a key to a motor in a car, a very powerful car. And when we start responding, we unlock phenomenal quantities of energy, and that unlocking of that energy makes it impossible for you to settle for less than ever again. You can't. You can't. Once you turn that sacral on, you cannot stop. You cannot settle anymore. And so start responding with your sacral and wear that sacral out every day. And don't settle for less than what you deserve and what you want. For the open sacrals, here's another thing about openness that we don't talk about a lot. You are designed, in any center that you have white, you're designed to borrow that energy, right? You are designed to borrow that energy from the world around you. And you can enjoy it, you can use it, you can play with it. But you're not designed to hold on to that energy forever, right? You're designed to borrow it, use it, and then let it go. So when you have an open sacral, for short periods of time, you're designed to borrow generator energy. And that can be awesome. For short periods of time, you're a super generator. You can be a superhuman for short periods of time. But you're not designed to hold that energy. You're not designed to stand in that energy forever. If you do, you actually fry your circuits, and that's where you get burnout. That's where you actually stop being able to process and experience that energy in the way that you're supposed to because you fried your circuits. And so for the open sacral types, you absolutely, this manifestors, projectors, and reflectors, or initiators, calibrators, and orchestrators, you're designed to use that energy temporarily, but you are also designed to pull away from it and rest. And you need rest time away from the generators, which means you got to be sleeping well. You have to be getting in bed before you're exhausted. That's how open sacral types need to be in bed before they're tired. If you've crashed because you're exhausted and you're dragging yourself to bed, you probably will not get good quality sleep because you waited too long. You need to be in bed flat, letting that sacral energy dissipate out of your energy field. So sometimes that means you got to go to bed 30, 45 minutes before you're actually tired. Lay down flat, listen to music, listen to, I don't know, a book on tape. I say book on tape. We don't do books on tape anymore. We do Audible, right? Listen to Audible or whatever, but lay flat because that allows your energy field to dissipate the extra energy you've picked up so that you can sleep well. Okay, so you can sleep well. It also means take a nap in the afternoon if you need to, if you can. And it means recognize that you have seasons of high energy and seasons of rest. Seasons of high energy and seasons of rest. And you need to be able, this goes back to the relationship between the will and the sacral, you need to, when you're in a season of activity, you need to create a resource bank for yourself so that when you're in a season of rest, you still have access to the resources. So save your money. Save whatever you need to save. Set some aside so that when you're in a rest season, you don't get desperate because you've run out of resources, right? You need to have a cushion for yourself and remember and realize from the start, man, if I could get every young open sacral type to get this like in their early 20s, start building a resource reserves for yourself now. Because you need to have that resource reserve in place so that when you are in a season of rest, which is not failing, that's not because you did it wrong, it's because that's how your energy works. When you're in a season of resting and renewing and restocking and replenishing, you're not desperate. You don't have to compromise. You don't have to just go get a job to get by. You can actually afford to take care of yourself during those seasons of downtime, during those seasons of rest. So these are the two pieces that we are looking at today, the will center and the sacral center, in terms of calibrating your energy, bringing you back online. Next week, I'm going to talk to you about the root center and the emotional solar plexus. And we're going to talk about influencing time and timing and dealing with fear. And we're going to look at how do you move out of reactivity, repeating old cycles again and again and again, into intentional, deliberate creation so that you're recalibrating that emotional center to be a source of energy and vitality for yourself. So I hope I've given you something to think about. I hope that you are resting and playing hard this weekend and taking good care of yourselves. I will see you next week, 9 a.m. Central. We'll be talking about the emotional solar plexus and the root center. Join me on Tuesday at 9 a.m. for Transit Tuesday. We'll be talking about the energy forecast for the week. Be sure, if you haven't done this yet, to get a copy of the Transformation Workbook, and also sign up for the 5-day masterclass series that starts on Monday, April the 28th, where we're going to talk about coaching yourself and each other and your loved ones and your clients during seasons of disruption, during times of massive change. So thank you for being with me here today. Thank you, Teresa, for posting all the links. Be well, take care. I'll see you next week.